Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amber Hefner. I am the Executive Director of Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. I'm excited to have you all join us. And we're very appreciative of the new partnership that we have with Alertus and bringing the opportunity to provide a very special grant to members of our organization in the state of Illinois. So a big thank you to Alertus for partnering with us on this grant and for sharing the information that they're going to be sharing with us today. So I'm going to kick it off to Mr. Kyle Casey from Alertus. Kyle.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, everyone, for joining in today. I am going to share my screen first and foremost. So let me pull that up. Does it look okay, Amber?
It looks great, Kyle. Yes, we've got the full screen. Perfect.
Perfect. My name is Kyle Casey. I'm the regional account manager for the Midwest for Alertus. I handle Illinois, Missouri, and Kansas. So obviously with this being the Illinois Digital Educators Alliance, I will be leading the webinar today. I'm also joined from our end, Patrick Dennons, our Director of Education Sales. Ryan McGonigal's our Director of Philanthropy. He's been working with Amber on this grant program, and also Andral Delay, she is our events manager, helped put this together. So appreciate everyone on the Alertus end. I will be running point on the presentation, and then we're going to leave some time at the end, at least 15 minutes or so for a Q&A. So we have some questions if no one has any that we can cover, but ideally, hopefully through this, some people have questions pop up that we can cover during this time. So for the presentation, just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to cover, an intro, into the Alertus as a whole, but more importantly, some of you on here may have already applied, or if you aren't aware, I want to put a focus on the grant program that we've partnered with this association on. We're about midway through the application period. I believe it's the end of April to apply. So there is still time, and hopefully after today, we can get the information out to the right people to apply to this grant program. I'm also going to go over our Safe in Seconds initiative. Essentially what that is the free version of Alertus. And we offer that to anyone that applies to the grant program. And then, the topic today is, the hybrid work environment and how we can effectively communicate both in an emergency and non-emergency situations with hybrid. And that's kind of twofold. It's hybrid in the sense of, some people that are on site and off site, but also in the grand scheme of it of, as we're returning to in-person in both a flex or full-time model, how do we adjust back to after not being in a building for, a year or more, both the faculty and the students, how do we help them adjust with our technology to be prepared for both emergencies and non-emergencies and be able to react the right way? Because, not being in a building for that long, if an emergency were to pop up, it's been a while since students, in fact, they've had to react to that. So we want to try to help bridge that gap for everyone. And then, like I mentioned, some time for Q&A. What I wanted to cover first and foremost was this K-12 Grant Program that we've partnered with Illinois. Anyone on this call today and anyone that listens after today in the recording can apply to the grant program. We've had several applicants already. I want to make it clear that for the grant program itself, there is only one winner selected for it. Our selection process is based on a couple different factors. I will be individually reaching out to every applicant of the program and having an individual one-on-one call with you and your organization around some of the things that we like to take into account as we select a winner for it. It's twofold around, the need from that school. Is there a financial hardship? Is there a need to have a grant program? Some people, we try to vet, the eligibility on the financial end, but also, do you have the infrastructure in place? We do offer a wide range of software and hardware that's included in this grant selection process. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that can be properly implemented at the selected winner. And that will come down to more the IT infrastructure. Do you have the right technical people in place? If you were selected, so we can get this all set up and get it up and running in your organization. Some of the highlights are some of the software features of Alertus, and I'm going to cover all these over the next few minutes, but our Alertus desktop notification, both mobile apps that are that goes along with that on the software side, Alertus Threat Watcher, which is partnered with AccuWeather for weather monitoring, and then hardware, one alert beacon per school and up to 4 activation panic buttons that are wall mounted that are connected to the alert beacons to actually initiate alerts. We will also give you dedicated implementation time on our end, our 24/7 support, and a 3-year contract with Alertus. So once you get this set up, once you're up and running, you will be able to access, the software and the hardware for those next 3 years, get the, full 24/7 support from Alertus. And like I mentioned, I will be connecting with all of you over the next couple weeks if you do apply to the program, to go over this individually with you in more detail and kind of go over some of the questions that we have for you for our vetting process. Anyone who is not selected for the grant program, as I mentioned, there is only one winner, but anyone who applies to our grant program is eligible for our Safe in Seconds initiative. The short version of what this Safe in Seconds initiative is a free scrub down version of our desktop notification from Alertus. So it's the full screen override. It's part of our paid version that we offer to all customers, but we do want to make sure that anyone can have access to this in a free format. So it's a full screen override. I will cover that today in terms of how that works, how it takes over the desktop, how you can customize it. There's no length of contract or anything like that. Once you're set up with our free version, you can use it as long as you would like. So there's no cost. The only cost on the user end would be that you would have to have a dedicated server for Alertus within your technical department. But in terms of using the system, there is really no limits on that. So even if you're not selected for the grant program, we still want to make sure that anyone who applies will get set up with our Safe in Seconds initiative. Quick background on Alertus. So Alertus was founded in 2002. Our CEO, Jason Volk, was a student at the University of Maryland College Park when a tornado swept through the campus. Unfortunately, killed 2 students at the time. This was obviously, technology was a little different 20 years ago, but there wasn't really any practices in place, not really much technology in place for emergency notification, especially layered mass notification. So Jason took it upon himself to develop an infrastructure of emergency mass notification software and hardware that can fit in any type of organization. Obviously, today we're talking about education, but we work with healthcare, local governments, military, and so on. So, from our end, we try to take a simple layered approach to make sure that any organization, both within software and hardware, can have the right infrastructure in place for those emergency notifications. And from the Alertus end, I will go over to say, but the key thing is that we have a simple single point of activation for our product. So if you get signed up with our free desktop override, it's just an Alertus console that you log into on your desktop, and you can push out the alert. But even in the grant offering that has a few other features, such as the mobile apps and the hardware, all of that can still be activated from one point. So all the endpoints link back to the dedicated Alertus server that you have on your end in your IT department, and it can push out the alerts. And for this presentation, I'm going to give you a little bit of info on some of the Alertus features, but try to shift it towards specifically a hybrid work environment. So I'm going to skip ahead in terms of jumping to some of the products. So I do want to cover the desktop notification because this applies to a hybrid work environment, but more importantly, it's also included both in the grant and the Safe in Seconds initiative that I mentioned, the free version. How our desktop notification works is all of the registered devices on the campus, you would have them registered to the Alertus server, and through the Alertus console, you would be able to send out a notification. As you can see here, this is a sample message, but this can be fully customized. And as we talk about, return to in-person, there's going to be a lot of different ways you want to communicate with both students and faculty. Alertus was, originated out of emergency management, but the way we offer our products can be used really in any sort of way. So, the full screen override is a really good use case for an imminent threat, something that you need to create a high sense of urgency around. But when we talk about returning to the classrooms and the buildings, there are other ways that you can communicate with the students, and I'm going to show you a few of those. But we do have both a quarter screen and an 8-screen ticker override. The grant program selectee would be able to get access to these. As I mentioned, the free version is just the full screen, and I will go into this in more detail when I meet with all of you individually. But in terms of communicating, not just in an emergency standpoint, but whether it's, say you have the students coming back in and you want to create good practices around reminding them around distancing, mask wearing, washing hands, whatever the COVID protocols might be within your organization, perhaps that's where a quarter screen notification or even an 8th screen ticker mode across the top would come into play. So, you can kind of layer it to where you can save the full screen mode for those imminent threats to the campus and the faculty and students there. But you can also use our software to communicate with students in different ways. So all the desktops that are on campus that are registered with Alertus would be able to get this alert come through. And you could use this quarter screen for maybe a COVID reminder. You can use the 8th screen ticker for, reminders of some of the practices as you're returning to in-person, while also still having the capability to do the full screen override. And then if you're just with our Safe in Seconds free initiative, like I mentioned, it's the full screen, but you can use that for both emergency and non-emergency notification. We also do, I do want to highlight this briefly, we do offer a Chrome extension. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be included in the grant program, but I just wanted to bring it up in terms of an add-on that it applies directly to the hybrid environment. In the K-12 side of it, with like Chromebooks for students. So in K-12, we see a lot of schools that have Chromebooks for every individual student, and they're bringing those both on site and back home. You can use this for in terms of non-emergency notification. So you can enable the teachers at the organization to be able to use our Chrome extension to message the students. So when we talk about like a hybrid work environment, maybe some of the students are on site, maybe some are still from home. If they're on like an A day versus B day, whatever that may be, they can use the Chrome extension to still notify those students with a desktop notification. So it doesn't have to be a full screen override. It could just be a smaller, like I mentioned, like a quarter screen size alert. And maybe it's not something related to, an emergency. Maybe it's just they want to be able to communicate better. Maybe they're using Zoom and right now they're just using a chat for students to ask, to go over stuff. That teacher could use that desktop notification, whether it's exam on Friday or a project's due on Thursday, and you're trying to think of the easiest way possible to communicate with all those students and get their attention. Having something pop up on their device and having them have to acknowledge it to have it come off will kind of ensure that that they're going to see it, and you can make it specific to each classroom. So each teacher could have the autonomy. You would create groups within the Alertus console specific to like the teacher and the students that are aligned to that teacher, so they can just message their class around some of that stuff. So we talk about emergency notifications, but I think as we're moving both in a hybrid work environment, but also as students are returning to the classroom, we want to put a big focus on how else you can use the Alertus suite of products to effectively communicate with both faculty and staff, not just in an emergency situation. So that's where the Chrome extension comes into play, where you can or in higher ed, if there's an upcoming final exam on Wednesday, you could use the Chrome extension and actually have a notification pop up on the device and send that alert out. So there's a lot of use cases around emergency versus non-emergency, and we try to make sure that we offer enough different products that you're able to effectively communicate in different avenues. Did want to bring up, this is included in our grant program, is our 2 mobile apps, and I think this is a key part of a hybrid work environment. So the Recipient App, this would be included, like I mentioned, the grant winner would get access to this for the 3 years. And this would be, you can download this app through the iOS or Android store, and it's not really limited to anyone. So if you want, at the higher ed level, faculty and students, at the K-12 level, definitely faculty, students, that might depend on how the schools and the organizations feel about maybe the high schoolers specifically, but we've even seen, and we can even offer for parents to sign up and have a group dedicated to parents. So in terms of effectively communicating to students, regardless of their location, they can sign up with the Recipient App, or faculty and students, I should say. They can sign up with our Recipient App. You can customize this specific to your organization. So if you have a school logo you'd like to put where the ABC, as you can see here, you could edit that in to make it a little more customized to your school. And then it comes through as a push notification. So that same type of alert, that custom message that you saw on the desktop notification, can come through as a push notification on the user's cell phone. So it'll come through, and then the user will have to acknowledge it. So the confirm button similar to the desktop, that the user does have to click it off. You can also set how long it can play for, like on the desktop, if there isn't someone at the desktop at the time. So eventually it will come off. But the key thing here is that you can create groups. So some of the types of group scenarios I want to mention is, I did bring up parents for K through 12. You could create a group opt-in for just the parents of that school. So, say it's an elementary or middle school, the parents are, kind of stressing out around the days that their students there, changes to the schedule, if the students suddenly have to be remote instead of in person because of, stuff related to COVID, you can be able to effectively communicate with them through Alertus via the Recipient App. So you could have the parents set up the Recipient App, opt into the group for just the parents of that respective school. And then when you go to send out an alert, you can choose specific groups to target that alert to. So not every time you send an alert out, do you have to send it out to every registered endpoint. You can specify to specific groups and target it down to a specified part of the organization that you want to target. Another part that we see with a hybrid work environment, we've seen it. My fiance, she's in education, and there's certain days where she goes in and certain days she's remote. So they kind of have like an A schedule, B schedule. I'm sure a lot of you are seeing that as you're adjusting to the return to office. We could create groups for the A day versus the B day for students or parents or faculty, so that if you just want to communicate with those students who are supposed to be in the building that day, you could just communicate with them, or the B day, and so on. So there's really no limitation to how you want to really set this up. It is very customizable. And this is kind of where, obviously at the core, this is an emergency notification product. And for those imminent threats, obviously we recommend any of these types of software and hardware mentioned today to be used. But I think with the return to office, there's a lot of uncertainty around, okay, now we have the green light to let these, the students and faculty back in either full time or certain days. How can we make sure everyone's following the right practices? How can we make sure people feel comfortable, not just from a health safety standpoint, but just general safety, not being in the building for so long and then adjusting back to having to go in several days, if not every day of the week, can be quite the adjustment, especially for younger kids too. So we want to we feel we offer the products to kind of be geared toward any sort of situation, both emergency and non-emergency. I'm going to jump ahead briefly and cover another mobile app. This is included in the grant program. So the grant winner would get access to both of these mobile apps. Even if you aren't selected for the grant program, these are products that I would still like to discuss with you at a later date. But for the sake of the grant application process and the free version that is offered to everyone, I did want to just bring this up relative to the grant. The Activator app, when we talk about being a little more dynamic as we return to the office, at the core, we typically activate the Alertus system via a desktop or laptop. You log into the Alertus console on your computer, but we do offer an Activator app, which really simplifies it, makes it a lot easier, but more importantly, makes it more dynamic in terms of where you're sending an alert out. So in the Activator app, you can have preset alerts. You can have, this one's for example, an intruder lockdown, but you could have this one's a COVID-19 alert. So you can have both, emergency or non-emergency, more communicative types alerts. You can choose those preset alerts, and then it'll jump ahead and pre-populate whatever custom message you've built out, which you can also edit live time. So this will pull up and you can go in and change it if it's something you want to make some edits to before you activate it. And then when you click the activation button, it'll actually trigger the Alertus system to send the notifications out. Typically between 13 and 15 seconds is from the time of activation to the time it taking over the endpoints that are registered is the time. And when minutes matter, we try to notify in seconds and really save you a lot of time, especially in those emergency situations where when there's an imminent threat on the campus, and the difference of 1 minute could make a major difference for the safety of the faculty and students. We try to make it as simple as possible, no matter where you're located on the campus, to be able to still send out that alert, so you're not bound to being at your desk and having to log in and push out that alert. I do want to also highlight from a hybrid environment, our Alert Beacon. This is our flagship product, and we really see a use case for this in pretty much any environment. But more importantly, I do want to mention that this is included in the grant program. The grant winner would be, when they are selected, would get one per school, up to 30 schools in the district. And for the sake of a hybrid work environment, as students and faculty are moving back in the classroom, there's going to be for the most part, especially the rest of this year and the fall of 2021 going into the next calendar year, there's going to be a lot of days where not every student and faculty is actually in the building as we do this A group versus B group, or certain days you're in and certain days you're not. One of the things I think that's forgotten about in terms of that hybrid work environment is when all the students and faculty were in the school, when a fire alarm goes off, you look to each other for confirmation around, is this actually legitimate? Is this a drill? Do we need to react? As there's less people in the building, you have less peers to look to in the event that there actually is an emergency. And we try to offer different types of products that can create a higher sense of urgency. And we see a use case for higher urgency products in the event that you have less people in the building. If you're at 50% capacity of what you were, in January of 2020, you have less faculty and students to kind of confirm and make sure these are, legitimate. It's not a drill. And the alert beacon can kind of create a sense of urgency around that. It's an ADA compliant piece of hardware. It has a visual strobe that goes around, and it also shows the words of the alert come through over the front. So, if you put an imminent threat type message that came through for the desktop and the mobile notifications, those same words can come over on the alert beacon. But it also has a high decibel up to 106 decibel sounder alert alarm that goes off. So, when that's going off in hallways or individual classrooms, wherever you have those strategically located, I think that kind of closes the gap around, making sure that it actually was an emergency. I think some students they're not used to hearing, if it, stuff coming over the PA system or alarms going off. They've been, at home for the past year, and they're not going to know how to react sometimes. Even for like younger students who haven't been in and haven't seen those, they haven't had a fire drill in a year plus, they're not really sure how to, they might not be sure how to react as they adjust back to the in-person classroom. Having some of that different hardware in place can help bridge that gap in terms of creating a sense of urgency for those imminent threats. So as I mentioned, some of the non-emergency ways of communicating through, the mobile app around COVID protocols or changes to the schedule, we wouldn't recommend that for the alert beacon. This would be something you would use when you want to actually, get an imminent threat message out to the campus. The good thing about Alertus is if you have, a couple different ways of it set up through the desktop notification, the mobile app, and maybe the alert beacon, you don't always have to send the alerts out to all three or whatever you have set up. Within the Alertus console, when you go to send out an alert, you could choose just the alert beacon or just the mobile app or just the desktop override. It's very user-friendly in terms of how you kind of want to customize your message and how you want to get that out to the right folks. And one other thing that is included in the grant program that I want to bring up briefly is the duress button. So this is a wall-mounted panic button. There's up to 4 are included in the grant program per selected district. So you would be able, these actually are tied with the alert beacon. So you would have 2 of these per alert beacon. So you could just have 1 tied to it, but maximum 2. There's a contact closure on the back end of the alert beacon is how these are linked. And you can customize these to different situations. So we really want to make it as easy as possible as we're getting back into the workplace to send out alerts. And if you can have dedicated buttons to an evacuation or an all clear or a lockdown, whatever that may be, you can have color coded with the words. We customize it for you before shipping with the words on the front, so that in the event of a very imminent threat that you need to save time on, as I mentioned, the seconds matter here in terms of getting the notification out. The user on your end can actually press this plunger button, and that will trigger the Alertus system. So this is for the emergency situations. We wouldn't this would not be a use case around like just communicating, but in terms of emergency management as we get back into the workplace, this saves you time in terms of you'll have an alert dedicated to each of these buttons. So the 4 that you have as the grant winner, you can choose 4 different situations you want tied to that. And then when you press that button, you'll have a custom message linked to it that will trigger the Alertus system. So you won't have to log into the Alertus console. You won't have to pull up your Activator app. We try to make it as easy as possible, have different avenues to make it dynamic around. You don't know where you're going to be on the campus at any given time, what building you'll be in, what school you'll be at. we try to make it as easy as possible on your end to be able to actually send out these alerts. And so those are the main things that are included in the grant program. I did want to bring up as we kind of move back into as I mentioned, with making it easier for people to adjust to back into the workplace. One thing we do offer, and this isn't included in the grant program, so I'm not going to cover in too much detail, but it is something I can, as we all connect individually after today, we do offer a Wi-Fi panic button. It's the size of like a flash drive that can go on your keys or your lanyard. And we recommend this for all faculty in any given organization. Especially for faculty, if they've been working from home, as some of you on here, for a year plus, and then you adjust back by the fall to going into the the office, that there are threats on a school campus that you haven't really encountered in the past year. And we want to make it as safe as possible for everyone as they return. This Wi-Fi panic button enables you to call for help no matter where your location is on campus. So you would slide it open, the red panic button, you just press that, and then it would trigger a notification in the Alertus console on the back end for the users of the Alertus console to react to who sent that alert and where their location is. So through your Wi-Fi system, we can track your individual location. Each panic button has a individual user dedicated or assigned to it. So the users of the Alertus console will know who they're locating in the event of a call for help. So there's a lot of uneasiness around having not gone into the building for the past 12, 13 months and adjusting back to that. There can be a lot of stress within that. And for faculty specifically, we see this as a way of kind of, easing some of those concerns, no matter where you are on the campus. If you feel that you're in a dangerous situation, you can call for help for the respective folks within your organization. Those are kind of the key things. As I mentioned, within our grant program, there will be one winner. Our selection process, as I meet with you, I will go through some of the questions we like to ask just to make sure we do a proper vetting of each applicant. We will select one winner, but more importantly, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that even if you aren't selected as the one winner for the grant program, you still have eligibility to sign up with us. If the only cost that you would incur on your side with our free desktop version, as I mentioned, would be the dedicated Alertus server. So you would just have to provide us with a DNS host name. We would get you set up, and you can start sending out alerts full screen to the connected devices on the campus. So those are kind of some of the key things. I'm not sure. I'm sure we have a lot of questions. I see the chat has a lot going on in here. So I'm not sure, Amber, do we have questions we want to cover?
We can, if you are ready, Ryan, we can certainly open it up to questions. That is good with me. And for those of you, for those of you on, if you want to put them into the chat, you can. We have a small enough group that if you are comfortable, you could also come off of mute and ask your questions that way. But feel free either way, if you'd like to come off mute, or feel free to put them in the chat and we can get going on those. Kyle, I know that there was, I had a couple of direct messages.
Okay.
Some people have a current similar service.
Okay.
Kind of putting you on the spot right now, but what might you be able to say? And I don't know what those services were. I'm just wondering if you have, anything to share about what might be different between Alertus and other communication tools similar.
Right. So we integrate with a lot of competitors or partners we see in the marketplace. A lot of times it's organizations that focus within text and email. I'm assuming that's probably some of the people in here that they have right now. So as you kind of see here, we're more of a facility-based solution, hardware and stuff that's integrating with what you already have, as opposed to just a text and email. We do not have an email offering, and our text, if you will, offering is our mobile app. But there is 2 dozen plus different companies that we do integrate with either via a one-way integration, or we do have some that's a two-way integration. That would depend on the individual company itself. Some we do not integrate with. But as I connect with everyone individually to talk about your environment relative to the grant program, that is something we can discuss and see if it's something that we can coexist with the two, where you can implement Alertus and maybe still send alerts out via the one you already have right now, or vice versa. As you've seen today with Alertus, we have different ways to activate the system through the wall-mounted button, our Activator app, our Alertus console. We obviously recommend to activate it from our end if possible, even with integrated. But yeah, it would depend on the individual company that you're currently using, but we can integrate with a lot of companies within this space.
And Kyle, if you don't mind, I just wanted to chime in real quick, everyone. My name is Pat, and I'm the Director of Education. I also just wanted to add to that. Obviously, most schools have some semblance of emergency notification, but in particular in the K-12 space, we see a lot of either text and email, like Kyle said, or reunification, kind of post-event. How do we account for people? How do we get people back in the building? Make sure that everyone is okay. But largely, some of the actual notification of that event is missing. And depending on some of the other questions that we might field here in the next several minutes, I think it is advantageous for Kyle to show a couple more of our products, because obviously there is one grant winner, but then beyond that, after that 3-year period, if the system is working well for you, it's going to open you up to a lot of our other tools and a lot of our other integrations, whether it's retrofitting existing systems like a PA system or a fire panel, or even providing actual hardware like a standalone text-to-speech speaker that we offer that can be put in a maintenance closet or a data closet, somewhere where you might have staff or faculty working that aren't going to be seated at a computer or aren't going to be within earshot of a particular speaker. So there's a lot of ways that Alertus allows you and empowers the school to pick and choose what solutions work best in a world where, obviously, we don't have to tell anybody, I'm sure budgetary concerns are huge, especially coming off of last year. And I urge you to take a look at Alertus, because we are the most cost-effective solution that is out on the market today for the broad range of functionality that we offer.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. And I do want to kind of piggyback off that. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key things from our hardware and integration capabilities is kind of easing some of those concerns as we get some students and faculty back into the buildings, and then not being used to hearing notifications for these past 13 plus months, and not having some peers there to kind of confirm or make them know if it's a drill or if this is legitimate. So we have a couple other ways of effectively communicating. This wouldn't be included in the grant, but I want to bring it up. Similar to Alert Beacon in terms of creating a sense of urgency, we do have a text-to-speech integration with your existing PA infrastructure. So if you have a PA system in place, I have a questionnaire that from an IT standpoint, we would need to make sure we can integrate with what you have, depending on what you currently have in place. But the text-to-speech integration can be retrofit with your existing infrastructure, and it can allow you that same message. So if it was, say it's an all clear, there was an imminent threat and it's now an all clear, please return to your respective rooms. Those same words can be spoken out over the PA system. And a human voice, a computerized human voice, either male or female, can come out through the system. And when we talk about making sure that students and faculty, as they return to the building, are kind of fully aware of everything going on in the event of an emergency, having something actually come through the PA system and taking the human part out of it, where no one has to talk through it live, but just having it being integrated with Alertus, so those words are just being spoken out through a computerized voice as opposed to a live human voice. And especially in an imminent threat, we probably don't want someone having to, feel obligated to be talking through this. We try to make it as simple as possible. So at the same time you're sending out that desktop override and those mobile app notifications, you could be having that text-to-speech be spoken out over your PA system. And even if we can't work with your PA system that we have some other avenues of trying to get those words spoken out to you in different ways. We have a self-amplified speaker, a small 2-pound speaker that you can really put strategically in most places in your building. So as Pat mentioned, maybe it's a supply closet that you can't hear the PA system through, or and even the alert beacon would come into play in that situation as well. Or maybe you just don't have a PA system that we'd be able to retrofit with our text to speech. We have different ways of being able to get that notification out. So obviously we see this, but in wide range of emergency notifications, but kind of gearing it toward the hybrid work environment, more importantly, getting people back in the classroom. We want to make sure you have a layered approach to your notifications. So as these students and faculty come back, they not only feel comfortable knowing that there's these practices in place, but also in the event of an emergency, there's different ways of reaching the respective folks within the building so that they can be notified and be aware of the situation. And even outdoor, especially in the college side, we have an outdoor high power speaker array that it has that same text-to-speech capability. So when we want to talk about trying to reach every person on any given campus, both indoor and out, we do have the hardware capability and integration capability to support that. So I'm obviously more than happy as I connect with each school individually to kind of go more in detail on some of our different features, and that not just for the grant program, but just down the road, obviously budget withstanding to potentially add on some of these. But as we're kind of shifting the focus to like the hybrid work environment, the return to in person, making sure those students feel safe and the faculty feel safe as they return to the campus. Some of the stuff we highlighted today kind of can help ease those concerns and bridge the gap in the 2021-2022 school year as we kind of adjust to this, hybrid work environment, ideally working toward a 5-day a week back in the school eventually.
So Kyle, just a little clarification in regards to kind of speaking to that hybrid work environment. Let's say that at any point in time, teachers or educators, schools were remote. Can notifications be sent to teachers during that time if they're on their own devices? Or how does that work exactly? Or like for the teachers to get alerts, is Alertus connected to emails or to the laptops?
Right. So we do not have an email offering, and that's kind of where you mentioned where some of the people on the call today already have maybe some practices in place. Maybe they already have text to email. We can integrate with depending on the company, we hopefully can have a one-way or two-way integration with that company. And that would be a more individual conversation relative to the client that they're using in that respective school district or college campus, or sorry, just K-12 school district. So that would be an individual conversation, but some of the ways of still notifying people, whether they're on site or off, like the Alertus Recipient App, as I mentioned, that can be something that can be downloaded by anyone. It's not limited to students and faculty. Contractors can download it. Really, parents can download it. Like I mentioned, that's not anyone, and that's included in the grant program winner. We would recommend really anyone that you can get the word out to sign up with the Alertus Recipient App. And there's different ways you can do that. You could create a campaign with maybe a QR code to sign up that you send out via email or a flyer or something like that. That is one way. If it's an individual device, we do have some use cases, and I can pull up some of the schools that do it when I meet with each of these schools individually, but you can create kind of a step-by-step on your school website for students with their own device to sign up for the Alertus notification, the desktop notification, opt into that with their own device. Some of that is linked to just the network. So unfortunately, from like a hybrid standpoint, that could be a case by case, depending on how it's broken down. It might only work when they're on campus, when they can have their own personal device. That's kind of a case by case basis in terms of how that would operate. But the Recipient App is a good way if they're just using their personal device. That could be a way to bridge the gap of, if we can't target their, the laptop, that their MacBook or whatever that is that they have that they use on their own, that's not a school issued device. How can we reach out to them in different ways? And the Recipient App is one way of targeting them and getting that message out.
Great, thank you. And of course, as you can imagine, there's also questions coming in just in regards to cost. And I'm sure if you meet with them individually, it'll be easier to kind of go over some of those. But do you have an estimation, for kind of your basic plan on what some of the costs might be?
Yeah, so what I'll say is for the grant program and the Safe in Seconds initiative. So like I mentioned, everyone on here maybe already has or can apply to the grant program. The selected winner, really the only cost that's included in that is having a dedicated server to Alertus on your end. And then our free, our Safe in Seconds version it's free in terms of free access to it, you would still have to. So that cost could be relative to every school, what that would look like to add on if you just use like a virtual server to target Alertus specifically. That would be kind of the main cost on your end. And then we would take on, all the costs of the free version. If we're talking cost of if say you aren't awarded the grant and you want to purchase Alertus, that would be a case by case because it's based off the amount of schools in the district, and at the college level, it's based off the amount of full-time student enrollment. So unfortunately, and that would be where, as I connect with everyone individually, I'd be more than happy to talk with that. But it is based off the district and how many schools, and we have different tiers. And there's like an annual license, but I can't really give numbers since I don't know how many schools are in each district. So that would be an individual conversation that I obviously look forward to having with all of you in the next few weeks.
Thanks, Kyle.
And
Are there?
I'll just chime in real quick just to add to that. One of the things to keep in mind and why I said we are one of the most advantageous systems when it comes to price is that more so than even what you guys saw today and what you will see when you meet with Kyle individually is that we have several different software tools that come with unlimited use of those clients. So, if you have, say, 15 to 20 schools in your district, you're going to pay a certain fee, but the actual breakdown and utilization of the system is unlimited. So just wanted to add that, as creative as you can get with the system, we can accommodate that.
Right, and this goes for both, for the grant winner, for the safe and seconds, everyone who signs up for a free version, or anyone down the road who does opt to maybe get a paid version with Alertus. Like from the desktop standpoint, there's not you wouldn't be paying like per device connected. It's once you get set up, both in the free and pay version, there's not really a limit on how many desktops you want to get connected to the Alertus server. So it's more of a it's not like an a la carte type way of setting up your devices. It's once you either set up yourself with the free version or opt into the paid license, you can kind of do what you want on your end in terms of how many recipient app downloads you want, how many desktops you want connected, and so on. So there's really no like hidden costs in terms of that. And then our hardware, for the most part, are all one-time purchases. Obviously, the hardware that's included in the grant program is included. But if anyone outside the grant program or even the grant winner down the road, if they want to add on to what they won with the awarding of the grant, most of those are just one-time purchases.
And one thing I just want to add on top of that, there are some strategic reasons for that, and I'm not sure if any of you caught when we were on the desktop notification, but our desktop product actually has the ability to override both a sleeping, hibernating screen as well as a login screen. So as long as that device is powered on, think about a computer lab or a main office that you could potentially be walking by. If this is the first communication and it can interrupt your day to communicate, once again, like Kyle said, within seconds, it's a really great benefit to our client that can break through that noise and capture the attention regardless of the geographic location of where you are within the building.
All right. Are there other questions? I see Run in regards to the certificate of attendance, and yes, we will get to that at the end. I always find it funny that educators could be so shy sometimes on these meetings and not come off mute.
It's almost 5 o'clock. I understand.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a question, but I did want to stress that, even though we only have one grant program winner, we look forward to working with all of you individually on kind of, seeing what your needs are, because no two needs are the same in terms of an organization, how many students and faculty there are. Do you want software? Do you want hardware? And that's why we do offer the free versions. We would like you to get access to the system regardless of your financial situation, even if it's just a desktop override, and allow you to kind of see how the Alertus console works, be able to still send out emergency and non-emergency alerts to your organization, and then individually work with each of you to see If that suffices, going forward, or if we want to look at, some of the other features. And I mean, there's a lot of other hardware that we didn't cover today, but in individual conversations, as we talk about your specific districts and kind of how you're set up, we can gear the conversation more individualized to what you're looking for.
That's great, Kyle. I know I can speak from experience as a former director of technology, how important this would have been in some situations when I was in that position, including a tornado. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the tornado was on a Sunday. So we were not in school, but it was a major F4 tornado. And had we been in school when that hit, it would have been huge. So this was definitely something post-tornado that my district was really looking at, to help out. And we realized how important something like this would be in a school district.
Right. And you mentioned a weather-related incident. I actually, that reminds me, I did want to bring this up. This is included in the grant program winner. And if you aren't selected for the grant, this is included in our paid version. But I did want to bring up for whoever is selected for the grant. The Alertus Threat Watcher, it's partnered by AccuWeather, and it would be integrated with your Alertus console. And it's an easier way of being able to track the weather related to the area. You can have some optional types of alerts, like a lightning strike display, near real time around, relative to your specific location. You can even go in and actually set up some specific ways of triggering the Alertus system. So, that would have, like your example was on a Sunday, there probably wasn't really anyone there, but say there are people there after hours and there's, an imminent weather threat, even if someone's not there to activate the console, we can still set it up and have it trigger alerts for the Alertus system. So at a minimum, it's a good way of just being able to track the weather in your area and have that linked with Alertus. But at a maximum, you can actually use it to initiate the alerts of the Alertus system. So this is something I'll discuss individually with everyone, because it is the part of the grant for the grant winner. So I do want to make sure there'll be an understanding around it.
Kyle, we also had another question coming in regards to the use of this requiring Wi-Fi or internet connection.
In terms of just in general, or?
Yeah, to be able to use, and I know you mentioned it, having to have access to a server. So I think the question is more of when let's say tornado, whatever, you lose internet connection, is it able to come across the laptops without internet or Wi-Fi?
Right. Pat, do you want to chime in a little bit there around the continuing the connection?
Yeah, sure. So our desktop alerting, our alert beacon, some of the products that come along with this grant will work on your local area network. There are also battery backups. So in the event that you lose that connectivity, you can still get a message out. And if you lose connection with your internet service provider, you can still communicate within the building. So depending on your setup, we know a lot of people will have certain power backups in their data closets. But in general, for the two solutions of desktop, as well as the alert beacon in particular, there is some fail-safe there to still get a message out on your local area network with that battery backup.
Thanks, Pat. All right, are there other questions? I know our Alertus team, Pat, this is totally unrelated to Alertus, but it just dawned on me when you said that you're near the DC area. All of a sudden I flashed to the cherry tree blossoms, and I'm so jealous because that's a goal of mine at some point, is to get out. I've been out there at the very end, but I've never seen them in full beautiful bloom.
And they're gone in about 7 to 14 days. So you really got to catch it. Last weekend and probably this weekend will be kind of the last remnants of it. But yeah, everybody's in the DC area. It's certainly worth checking out down by the tidal basin.
I bet. And I'm just thinking, because it's 55 and sunny here right now, so we're starting to get blooms on the trees, and I'm sure people are itching to get outside and enjoy some of that. So
absolutely. We were talking earlier, obviously, the bloom is coming before the cicadas. So hopefully people can enjoy the outdoors before it turns a biblical plague on us.
Yes, exactly. Well, if there aren't any more questions, again, feel free, if there are, to come off mute, or feel free to put them in the chat window. Either way, you will be getting an email tomorrow following up with Kyle's presentation, the recording of the presentation, links to the grant if you have not officially applied for it yet. And the presentation, Kyle, I believe you said would have contact information in it as well.
Yep, I'll include the presentation today, and it has our contact info and everything you saw today. So I'll have it saved as a doc. You can go back in and look at everything. And then, as I mentioned, please, if you haven't yet applied for a grant, we definitely want to get as many applicants as possible. And more importantly, I want to make sure everyone can, if they apply, it gives us an opportunity to connect with you about signing up for our free version and getting you set up with that desktop override. So it's a pretty easy way of getting free version of emergency notification, and look forward to connecting with everyone over the next few weeks to discuss your specific organization.
Thanks, Kyle. And I'll just put a plug in, because I know some grants can be very overwhelming to apply for. But thank you to Alertus that we worked with them, and this is not an overwhelming grant to apply for. So feel free to check it out. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I can also put you in contact with the Alertus team. But Kyle, Pat, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing. We really appreciate it.